Hello there. Welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour Ixalan. That's Luis Scott Vargas. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. Welcome back. It's nice to have you along. We've got semifinal number 2 all set up for you. Down in the feature match area, Seth Manfield. He is, of course, playing Sultai Energy. Pretty cool deck. We'll get a chance to look at that a little bit closer in the match itself. And Samuel Ihlenfeldt playing Mardu Vehicles, deck that we did not expect to see. Didn't do particularly well in the rest of the field, but Sam seemed to have it pretty well dialed in. This match, it's going to determine who gets to play against Pascal Maynard. Let's head down for semifinal number 2. And welcome back to coverage here at Pro Tour Ixalan. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas, and we have our second semifinal match all set up for you. Down in the feature match area, first player, Seth Manfield from the United States, playing Sultai Energy. He plays for Team Genesis, as you can see here. And, you know, he's got to be the favorite here. He's playing against Pro Tour newcomer Samuel Ihlenfeldt. Take a look at Sam here as he eagerly awaits. This is Sam's first Pro Tour. He does not have any other top 8s of any sort. He's played in 5 GPs in his career. So
Sam is the literal definition of just happy to be here. And I don't say that as a pejorative. He actually literally said, "I'm just happy to be here." And you can just tell by looking at him. It does mean that, you know, once people have accomplished their goals, they sometimes, you know, lose a little bit of the fire. But as long as he plays his heart out, then he's going to have a good chance here. Though I will agree that, you know, Seth has to be the favorite just due to his, you know, vast amounts of experience. This is now his 4th Pro Tour top 8.
Yeah, Seth all of a sudden vaulting into the conversation for the Pro Tour Hall of Fame, and he can make a very strong case for that. Being a world champion, a multiple-time GP winner. He's won 5 of those, and then this top 8 here really solidifies that case. And yeah, this is very much a matchup of extreme experience. Seth has been playing at the professional level for a very long time. He is a hardened veteran of the Pro Tour scene versus Sam on the other side of the table, who is not. This is his first Pro Tour, and he's just kind of figuring it out as he goes. I was down in the feature match area earlier. You know, he gives himself pep talks. He sometimes scolds himself if he feels like he's made a mistake. He's very vocal about his decisions, but he's really done a great job of keeping his confidence up and holding it together, and he defeated Mike Sigrist in that quarterfinal match. That is no small feat in a best of 5. And it took him 5 games to do it, but he got the job done. What are we looking at as far as curve outs here? It looks like a 1 into a 2 for Ihlenfeldt, though Seth Manfield has that long tusk cub playing D.
So in basically every single match across the board, if the energy deck has a turn 2 long tusk cub and it lives, it doesn't eat a fatal push or harness lightning, then that player is ahead. Energy, it wins the vast majority of games where its turn 2 long tusk cub, you know, has time to grow its tusks. And that looks like what's happening now, since the initiative is really on Seth's side. He's got another cub and a rogue refiner and a tune with ether and blossoming defense. So he's got a ton of different options as to how he can build out his board here. But it's all going to start by attacking, getting those 2 energy. It's really the 2 energy on damage that makes long tusk cubs so dangerous, because as we've seen, energy is a very powerful resource, and getting 2 for free per turn leads to huge advantages on the side of the energy deck.
Yeah, it also turns the race back on Sam Ihlenfeldt as another long tusk cub hits the battlefield here for Seth, who has 4 energy in the bin and is ready to block. There is land number 3, though, for Ihlenfeldt. He's going to play. Go ahead.
What Seth did here, by the way, is he chose not to use his mana the most effectively in order to leave up blossoming defense and play on unlicensed disintegration.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, that's fine.
So he's going to play Veteran Motorist, a card that has seen a lot of high-level play, but not in a while. Old Veteran Motorist has been sitting on the bench for the better part of a year.
Motorist in this Pro Tour.
Did you?
Oh, yeah. Crewed some Hearts of Kiran and just kind of ran me over.
Turns out that's still good.
But look at this now. Long Tusk Cub with 4 energy back. Just blocks all of Sam's creatures.
Go ahead.
One one of the strengths of this Sultai deck that Team Genesis played is that Blossom Defense is just a very mana-efficient card. And being able to leave Blossom Defense up and still carry out your game plan just gives you the extra layer of a protection and makes it so things can't really go too wrong.
We have seen Seth Manfield have, you know, I would categorize them as blowouts with that card where people just didn't know that he had it or couldn't afford to play around it, and all of a sudden they were on the bad end of spending 2 or 3 mana to kill a critical creature from Seth, who now only had to pay 1 and just got a huge advantage by protecting his creatures with Blossoming Defense. So efficient. And of course, when you think of this matchup, you think of Unlicensed Disintegration as being sort of the key removal spell, as it can be so devastating to lose any creature to it, plus that whole 3-life thing.
Seth might decide that he really wants to get aggressive here, though I suspect he'd be more likely to send in 1 cub than he would send in both. And here it comes. It's going to continue generating energy and continue growing Seth's advantage here. And also factoring in the fact that we look at Samuel's hand, and it's extremely heavy on lands.
What a 14.
How bad is that for Sam?
Well, Sam does have Canyon Slough, so he's able to cycle one of those lands, but Marduk's not a deck that really needs more than 4 lands in play for the most part. You know, you have cards like Walking Ballista where you can potentially sink some extra mana into them, but Mardu is a low-curve aggro deck, and lands number 5 and 6 are pretty close to being dead draws.
Okay.
Draw for turn? Yep.
And we've seen some of the more aggressive decks be able to mitigate mana flood. Ramanop Red, of note, can actually do something with those extra lands.
Well, Sam did draw a card that gets him out of this. Hazret the Fervent. She's not going to make an appearance, well, effectively, not all that soon, because Sam still has some cards in hand, but Hazret is the exact card that Sam wants to get out of this situation. Seth's only answer to her is Hostage Taker on the main deck, as well as 2 copies of Vraska's Contempt. So Seth's basically got a slew of 4 drops that deal with Hazret, which is more than what Teamer has. It's one of the advantages of Sultai.
Sam says, well, here's a Walking Ballista.
Well, what happened is last turn, when Sam cast Veteran Motorist, he announced Walking Ballista. And so he was like, well, here's the actual Walking Ballista.
Right. That was not a bluff.
I will swing with... 1 sec.
I actually like the attack with everything here, because Seth can block Beaumont Courier, but then you get in for 6 points of damage. And if Seth blocks Veteran Motorist, which would be the other option, then you get an extra card on your Beaumont Courier, so you're not even down a card.
Yeah, I like that too. Little sigh there from Seth Manfield's side of the battlefield as he is facing down a significant amount of damage. Also, Walking Ballista can be a real pain as far as adding extra damage post-combat, making blocks difficult.
14, 19.
Seth verifying life totals there.
Seen that one before. By the way, speaking of life totals, I mentioned it to the booth before, and I'm sure they said it, but when I was down there in the quarterfinals, I noticed that Sam had written on his life pad, "Breathe, I got this."
No, they didn't mention that.
They did, I heard them. Ooh, look at this. Here's that Blossoming Defense.
So
I'll respond by pinging it for 1.
Seth is casting Blossoming Defense before blocks to see how this plays out.
And that was a misplay, but whatever.
You said it for us there, Sam. So he pinged it for 1, then considered trying to finish it off and forcing Seth to use energy, and decided that he had taken a wrong line and abandoned it.
Yeah, I like that discipline.
Yeah, it's dead.
Now both creatures do die here, though, right?
No, the Cub has +2/+2 from Blossom Defense.
So
right, of course.
You have yourself at 14.
And that was what Sam
that's why he meant that was a misplay.
4, right?
And it wouldn't have been worth it for Sam to use that other counter just to force an energy use.
No, it's much more valuable to have Walking Ballista in play.
Yeah, you got it.
Sam's disappointed in himself. And you see that he kind of re-centered there.
Yeah.
Oh, that is tough. You know, at least he bailed on that mistake before he threw away a creature on it. But this is going to make life very difficult for Sam. Even a small misstep against a player of Seth Manfield's caliber can be fully punished, and that's what's happening here, isn't it, Luis?
Yeah, and this winding constrictor is going to make Seth's side of the board just go crazy. Every time Seth pays 2 energy, cub gets +2/+2. These 2 cubs will hit and generate 6 energy if they both hit. One's hitting, so that's 3 energy. And
Welp.
winding constrictor just, getting paid on both sides. The cubs generate more energy, and they get more from the energy they eat.
Seth Manfield's going to take advantage of anything he can to try to find himself in the finals.
And Sam really needed to draw like a 1-mana spell, so he could go land, Hazoret, 1-mana spell. But he's unable to do so, and so his Hazoret's not going to be active this turn. She's not going to be able to attack or block.
Another Spire of Industry.
Industrious side of the board for Sam here.
Okay. Go to combat? Yeah.
Can't attack with Hazoret this turn. So just a Scrap Heap Scrounger, which of course isn't blocking anyway.
Okay. Go ahead.
Three energy in the bin here for Seth. And Sam is still stuck with 2 lands in hand, correct? So no blocking here either from Hazoret?
Yeah, Hazoret is on the sidelines right now. So.
Okay, so the only blocker back is that Bomat Courier then. Yikes.
Well, Sam is going to be able to block the Bomat Courier and then trade in his 2 cards in hand for two new ones. But I still think it's going to be very difficult. And actually, Seth currently has 8 points of damage.
That would be lethal then, because...
And it means that Sam can't use Spire of Industries.
Yeah, this is really not looking good for Sam Ihlenfeldt here in our first semifinal game.
It's actually lethal with the Blossoming Defense that Seth still has in hand.
Yes. So Seth just needs to make sure he doesn't misstep here. There's another Winding Constrictor, and in comes the team. This should end up being a lethal attack here for Seth Manfield.
I'll attack.
And Sam can block the biggest cub, but the unblocked cub gets +3/+3. Make it a 7/7, and the Winding Constrictor brings it to 9 points of damage.
Yeah, let's go. Next game.
And Sam says, you know what, I've seen enough of this. Let's go to the next game. That means that Seth Manfield wins game number 1 of our second semifinal match. We'll remind you, we're playing a best 3 out of 5 here, which means that no sideboarding after this game. So the players are going to get shuffled up and ready. While they'll do, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back right after these messages.
Grand Prix events offer great experiences for players of all skill levels. These Magic celebrations are headlined by 2-day open tournaments with pro players, feature top artist signings, and host a wide range of side events. Find an upcoming Grand Prix event near you at magic.wizards.com/Grand Prix. Up your game with Ultra Pro Magic the Gathering accessories. Find the best Magic art on card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and more. Visit ultrapro.com to learn more and find a retailer near you.
back to coverage here at Pro Tour Ixalan. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas. We're in our second semifinal match.
Sure.
Players are having a little
It doesn't
chat.
come with travel, right? So
I think you get 2 invites. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah.
I think silver gets 1, right?
Well, I think you get an invite for.
I'm going to, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know exactly, but yeah.
This is a problem that Seth Manfield has not had to deal with in a while.
I get the invite.
Oh yeah, that's what I was saying.
The players are talking about getting invited back to the Pro Tour and the different ways you can do it. One of the ways is to make silver in the Pro Players Club. That will get you an invite. Also, if you finish with 11 wins or better at the Pro Tour, you get an invite to the next one. And so they were just sorting that out. But now, back to business here for our 2 semifinalists remaining.
Ooh, this is a very borderline hand here. I actually don't like I think on the draw, Seth's looking at a turn 3 Rishkar with a Blossom Defense and the rest being lands as...
Was that a 5-lander?
Yeah, it's being too slow, too land heavy, and no early plays.
So he's going to have to send that one back. But Sam kept his hand. He's currently showing it to Neil Rigby, one of our card spotters for this round. I'm digging the hat, Sam. I'm not going to lie. Got the Is It hat going.
I don't know anything about hats, so...
Or is it?
Oh, no, I know a lot about Is It.
Oh, okay. Seth Manfield, of course, is playing for Team Genesis. One of the better teams out in the field. They did finish runner-up in the team series last season.
Yeah, we covered their finals against Musashi.
Close one too. That they almost won. They were very close. Sam is also on a team. He's on Team Tower Games, and he, as we've mentioned before on the broadcast, comes from Minneapolis, same as our coverage co-worker Maria Bartholdi, and they in fact play at the same shop back at home. So Sam's received the upgrade from Maria's friend Sam to Pro Tour Top 8 competitor Sam. Congratulations for that, Sam. Well done. And I do believe we have a keep here.
And Seth is quite good. He has the Winding Constrictor into Rishkar, which is the kind of the draw you're really hoping for. He even has the Attune on turn 1 to make sure everything flows smoothly.
This matchup does not seem to favor Sam very well, does it? I'm looking at
Sam
4 fatal push here from Seth Manfield.
Sam would much rather play against Teamer than he would against Sultai.
Okay.
It's funny because those decks have, very similar matchups in a lot of ways because they have a lot of the same cards. But when you look at Fatal Push, Blossoming Defense, Walking Ballista, Winding Constrictor, all the differences, those cards all really overperform in this matchup particularly. So Sultai is one of the reasons that Mardu Vehicles actually becomes less played. And that's bad news for Sam running into this in the top 4.
What's the blue actually for? Hostage Taker, Scarab God, Rogue Refiner? Is that it?
Essentially Rogue Refiner.
Okay.
The other 2 come because you actually have those blue sources, but you're really just playing blue for Rogue Refiner.
Trigger.
Because this deck does remind you, more of the Winding Constrictor decks that we've seen in Standard past than the pure energy decks that we see in the more modern era.
It's kind of a hybrid, though. I think that it's likely true that those Walking Ballista Winding Constrictor decks from the past should have been heavier on energy.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Sam really hoping that this Veteran Motorist pays dividends because his hand was 5-land Scrappy Counter Veteran Motorist, and
Yikes.
he's facing down the Ballista or the Winding Constrictor Rishkar draw, which could make this game end very, very quickly. Well, it's really going to hinge on this turn.
So let's see if Sam has some way to get rid of that Winding Constrictor, because if he does,
Go to combat.
wow, that makes Rishkar look so much worse. He's going to attack with the Veteran Motorist. No blocks from Manfield. He knows how important that snake is.
No, Seth's going to think for a second about it, but he's not going to block there.
And now he gets to breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief. He gets to play Rishkar risk-free here, as Sam Ihlenfeldt has tapped out.
And because if Seth chooses not to attack with the Winding Constrictor, he can actually tap for a green to cast Blossom Defense if something were to go wrong.
That's an interesting decision because that is 4 damage represented by that Constrictor. And, you know, one way you can beat these aggro decks, you know, Mardu vehicles is by taking the fight to them. But, you know, getting in a race with the with the aggro deck is also perhaps a bit stressful. This is a critical turn already or in the early stages. Is Seth going to attack with the Constrictor or just sit back?
Well, there's a couple of things going on. One is that Seth was like, well, if Sam had a removal spell, he might have played it on turn 3. But because of Spire of Industry being the black source, Sam would have to first play Scrap Heap Scrounger. So you can't rule out Sam having Unlicensed Disintegration in hand or Fatal Push. Those things could just, you know, certainly be the case. So
I'll take it.
Seth thinks it's probably not super likely there's a removal spell, but he doesn't know for sure. If Rishkar got hit by Unlicensed Disintegration, that would be a very painful turn for Seth, but he's willing to take that gamble.
Yeah, I'm sure he's also thinking, well, even if Sam does do that, it would take Sam's entire turn here to make that happen. And we should look. I mean, I'm curious. Uh-oh.
It's all lands once again.
Lands in a Heart of Kirin here for Sam, so he certainly does not have the ability to deal with this board. And are we going to see Seth Manfield just take the race to Sam Ihlenfeldt here and just beat him up?
I think so. Heart of Kirin is a decent draw because that at least threatens to fly over and is a 5/5 blocker thanks to that Veteran Motorist. So it's possible that Seth's going to have to pump the brakes too, because Seth's hand right now is 3 land and a Rogue Refiner. Seth's not actually sitting on a ton of spells himself.
Go to combat.
Well, the race is on. Sam Ihlenfeldt
Move to block.
Yep.
going for the big attacks here.
So this is 4 here.
This is 6.
Okay.
So smooth move there, Seth.
Minor correction. That was Seth double checking that Sam was going to recognize that trigger from the Toolcraft exemplar. Because if Sam says, yeah, it's 4, well, then that's probably a mistrigger. But if Seth says, excuse me, if Sam says, actually, that's 6, then that is him doing it.
That trigger, do you?
Well, and now we're going to get into the details of it from Manfield, and the answer is nope. Nope, you don't.
It's just +2/+1. It's it doesn't.
Yeah, the way this works
Not
is
my favorite part of the game, I will admit.
mine either. I agree, but just for sake of explanation, the way it works is that Sam only has to recognize it when it matters. So if Seth asks or if damage happens, that's when he has to say it's this much. So ultimately, though, the 6 damage did get through, and the Veteran Motorist hits the bin. It got gobbled up by that Rishkar. So once again, Seth gets to untap here with a pretty burly board. That is 8 power with Sam at 16. But Seth did take a pretty big hit himself down to 11.
Yeah, and that was, I think, a decent attack from Sam, given the follow part of Kirin. And, you know, all's not lost. Having a Canyon Slough as one of your lands in hand is really good for you.
Play Walking Ballista.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, there's a Walking Ballista, though, for Seth Manfield. That's going to have an additional +1/+1 counter on it thanks to that Winding Constrictor.
And that draw was critical, because now Seth's going to be able to wipe Sam's board and pretty much clean up the game from here.
Yeah, this one is firmly in hand for Manfield. I suppose he's incentivized to get this done now.
He wants to, well, on the one hand, he would like to prevent Sam from crewing Heart of Kirin.
That's what I was thinking.
He can't really do that, because if he kills the Scrap Heap Scrounger now, Sam can just bring it back.
But he only has 1 mana available, right?
Oh, he's got 2, but what might happen
okay.
is after he cycles this Canyon Slough, then Seth might take out the Scrap Heap Scrounger
You
now.
have me at 11?
Yeah.
Okay.
Draw for turn.
Yeah.
Well, he just chose not to do that. And that could lead to him taking some additional damage. But I think Seth is also looking at the board and saying, yeah, you can do that, but I've got lethal here. You don't have any blockers.
In fact, Marta Vehicles does an exceptionally poor job of blocking.
Exactly. Generally speaking, vehicles themselves are a little bit clunky as blockers because you'd prefer to be attacking with them.
Toolcraft exemplar.
And this Toolcraft exemplar, I'm sorry, but that Walking Ballista looks like it's going to take care of that problem.
So for future, does he have to announce that trigger when he's going to combat?
So he's doing it.
Okay. I'm going to shoot that.
You can see Seth just asking for some clarity, because when it comes to the damage part of it, you say it, but here he's like, well, if he didn't announce a trigger, then can he still crew? And he just wanted to know. At any rate, it wasn't relevant for this particular scenario because Seth was just going to kill the exemplar regardless.
Yeah.
And now that we're going to see the winding constrictor get disintegrated.
You take 3.
Yeah.
And that's going to drop Seth down to 4.
Yeah.
And so Samuel's actually drawing unless disintegration
You have 4 to 8, right?
is going to swing this game unless Seth has something.
Wow.
Pump.
Oh,
Yeah.
Seth can actually pump up to 6 and attack and then shoot twice. Never.
Oh, he's got lethal on the battlefield still. Right. So that is going to do it for game number 2. Advantage bar flying all over the place, and you see a little shake of the head there from Sam Ihlenfeldt. He knows that that one got close,
Yeah.
but it wasn't to be.
He didn't have a whole lot of options, I think, with how he could have played that. I like the aggressive line he took, throwing away better motors for 6 points of damage, but didn't quite get there.
Yeah, to get him close. And, of course, that means that with game 2 in the books, it's time for us to head towards sideboards. Let's take a look at the sideboard for Seth Manfield to kick things off. When you see this sideboard kind of at a snapshot here, Luis, what matchups does it look like Seth was trying to shore up the most, and is this one of them?
Seth actually has a pretty well-rounded sideboard, and you see those copies of Die Young, which can hit Hazred, are also pretty nice at picking off like Toolcraft Exemplar. Appetite for the Unnatural, also very good in this matchup. There's a lot of vehicles to munch on. And then Deathgorge Scavenger can eat a Scrap Heap Scrounger, as well as just gain life in general. So Seth, I think, is pretty well prepared for this. Those 6 cards, at the very least, look quite enticing.
Yeah, I'm curious, too. If you look at Seth Manfield's deck list here, are there any cards in the main deck that just scream, get me out, I don't want to be in here in this matchup?
Well, that's one of the good things about Seth's deck is that, no, there's no cards that are really horrendous. Like even Glint Sleeve Siphoner, that looks like a card you might want to take out against an aggro deck, especially one with a Walking Ballista, but it's still a pretty solid card. I would be looking at Glint Sleeve Siphoner. Scarab God is a little slow, and Seth has plenty of power to defeat it without that. And then one of the things Brad mentioned in the interview was that Rogue Refiner is a card Seth could look at cutting, though that is not typically I have not tested this matchup post-board enough to be confident one way or another.
But it sounds crazy, right? When you first hear it, you're like,
Rogue
wow.
Refiner's not a card you should side out in general, but it could be right in an aggressive enough matchup.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I would trust Brad Nelson in this scenario. Let's take a look at Sam's sideboard. Lots of red cards here. He's got Chandra, Apia. He's got 3 Rampaging Ferocity on a pair of Duress. One of the cards that we've seen him use to pretty good effect is Dusk to Dawn. And then he's got 2 Magma Sprays and a pair of Abrades, and then a Plains. What do you like here against this Sultai energy deck?
Dusk to Dawn is interesting because it makes Winding Constrictor almost a liability if you go too deep on, all your +1/+1 counters everywhere, and it can take out Long Tusk Cubs as well. Doesn't do a good job of killing Walking Ballista. That one tends to be at the right power, but it also gives Sam a good long game card of casting Dawn and then just getting back a bunch of creatures. Past that, a Braid can kill Winding Constrictor quite nicely. Can also take out Cub some of the time. And then Pia Nalar is just generally a good card to board in if your opponent's got a lot of removal.
Chat wants to know what's up with the Plains.
You see stuff like basic Plains when you're trying to decide in 4-mana double white cards like Dusk, or even just 4-mana cards like Chandra in a deck that's kind of maybe playing a little land light.
Okay. Is there a play-draw element to the Dusk to Dawns as well?
It's possible you want those on the draw when you think you're going to be behind, and then on the play you'd rather just be max aggression. Like, for example, in the Teamer Mirror you have Long Tusk Cub in on the play and not on the draw in some matchups, and this could be a similar thing.
And Sam will be on the play here, so we may not see those Dusk to Dawns. But they are an option for him. As we have seen, they would have been pretty effective against Seth. He has built out some crazy big boards. Though of interest is that, Seth having the knowledge of Dusk to Dawn, he may even play around it if he suspects that that's the type of card that Sam's going to be bringing in. Take a look at the feature match area here. There's a trophy sitting over there. That's waiting for somebody. Of course, the winner of this round will find themselves in the finals playing against Pascal Maynard, who's on blue-white God Pharaoh's Gift deck. And one of these players just scrapping it out here for that opportunity, but things going very well for the more experienced of the pair, Seth Manfield, as we look at Sam Ihlenfeldt from Minneapolis in his first Pro Tour, and I have to say I have been really impressed by his composure, because we had him in the feature match in the last round of Swiss yesterday, and you could tell it was getting to him a bit. He was talking a lot. He was talking about his mistakes that he was making, and saying it was just kind of getting to me. But here, he's been calm, cool, and collected. You know, I mean, sure, he'll talk about if he makes a mistake, or he'll ask some questions and stuff like that. But that's just his personality. I really didn't get the vibe. And I'm talking about this, by the way, after having stood right behind him for the majority of his quarterfinal match, where I can hear every word he's saying. I can catch all of his mannerisms and everything like that. You know, I think he really did a good job of kind of getting himself mentally prepared for this. And the other thing that's really fun is that he talks a lot. He talks to the players. Him and Sigrist were having a big conversation where Sam was telling some story about how his blood sugar got low. He's a diabetic, and he has to check that constantly. And he needed to call an ambulance, but then he didn't want to go to the hospital, and they gave him some drink. And I was hearing all of this while I was on the iPad on the other match. So they were having a grand old time waiting to start again. And I like seeing that, a friendly face in the feature match area as well, since, you know, the more, like, look at how Seth is playing, right? All business. Look at him. I mean, he's super dialed in. You get him off the table and he'll joke around with you. But Sam, you know, I think he partially breaks the tension by chatting like that. And I found it very pleasant down there in an environment that tends to not be. I mean, look, he's actually smiling. Like, since when do Magic players smile when they're playing in the top 8, you know? It's just not a thing.
Top 8's for business.
Yeah. We should paint a totally different picture of Sam. He's a ruthless machine at winning Magic, and this is his way of getting a psychological edge. Are you buying that?
Yeah, it's an elaborate shell game.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. You're starting.
Okay, game number 3 incoming. And I'll tell you what, if they go as well as they have for Seth Manfield over the course of the first 2 games, he's going to be in the finals against Pascal Maynard. Is this a good opening hand here for Sam, Luis? It looks like he's got a pretty decent mix. No, too many lands.
Just too many lands,
Yeah.
not enough threats.
Right, he had some removal spells and some lands, but like he said, just no way to really start applying pressure, and Sam's certainly aware of how important that can be. Seth Manfield, current best finish here at the Pro Tour level was 3rd at Pro Tour Shadows over Innistrad.
Despite my best efforts.
Indeed.
I played him in the Swiss when I was locked for top 8, and he was not, and I just tried to beat him.
Did he allow that?
No, he defeated me, and he made top 8. Well earned.
Yep.
That team dynamics are what they are, you know, and it's one of the reasons I actually really love the team competition. I was actually really jealous last year that I was not able to participate. I mean, I love doing coverage, but the team thing is new and really fun. And, you know, this year watching, you know, this first Pro Tour, like every round counting how did your team do?
How did it feel?
Felt really good.
Is there a different vibe?
Yeah, people, you always cared how your friends did, and you still do. Like, I care how Matt Nass does, for example. He's one of my friends. He's not on my team, though. I really care how, like, Ben Stark and Paulo and Sigrist and Juza and Raptor all do. And it was the same with other teams, and people were looking at, like, oh, what was our win percentage on day 1? Because before the formalized teams, there were teams, right? There were definitely teams, and you'd be like, oh, what was our win percentage? You'd be like, oh, does this person count on our team? They were with us for most of the testing, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Now it's very cut and dry. Here's your 6-player team, and here's what your win percentage was, and here's how you're doing in the field. And it's really, really fun to see that pan out.
You know, there's nothing that Magic players like more than a list of ranked anything. And,
Oh, yeah.
Now we've got an official one from the team perspective. By the way, congratulations to Team Channel Fireball, Luis. You guys did fantastic at this opening event.
Well, we're #1 pending Seth's result.
But still, #1 or #2.
If Seth wins the tournament, then actually Team Genesis will be #1. So.
That's right. No surprise. Uh-oh. We didn't get it on camera there, but I certainly heard Sam say, going to 5.
Seth is not. This hand is very ideal. Turn 1 Attune, turn 2 Cub with Blossom Defense and Walking Ballista.
Oh, no, Sam, I'm sorry. You still got a chance here, though, buddy. Don't give up. Going to 5 is tough, but we've seen explosive starts from Mardu vehicles for well over a year now.
Exemplar, Heart of
Not
Kieran,
over.
2 landed a fatal push, and then, you know, maybe we got another game going.
Yeah. Also, while this is just one tournament, even if Sam were to lose here in the semis, it doesn't end there. You know, this is a stepping stone for his Magic career where he's going to get a chance to come back and prove himself at the Pro Tour again and again. Might feel like that in the moment. And I'm sure he's dialed in on the task at hand. He's got a tall order ahead of him. He's on a mulligan to 5 and has to win 3 games in a row. But this could be the start of something great for Sam Ihlenfeldt as far as his Magic career goes as well. Let's not forget that. Okay, back to business, though. He's got to defeat Seth Manfield 3 games in a row, starting on 5 with a lot of lands.
But he's got the Toolcraft Exemplar, so, and he's stride to the bottom, so he could still have a Heart of Kieran on turn 2.
Okay, so there's part 1. And we know that Seth Manfield has a very solid opening hand with a turn 2 Whining Constrictor at the minimum. He also has a Long Tusk Cub, so he's going to have his choice here.
Yeah, and Seth's going to lead with the Cub, so then he can play Constrictor and attack with the Cub and just end the game in like 2 turns, actually, if Sam doesn't come up with something.
Right, and this is a critical turn 2 here. By the way, Seth Manfield apparently trusts his friend. He did side out the Rogue Refiners here. The way Brad said it, it seemed like he might not have believed him, but he did take them out. Here's land number 2. Attack for 1. That's not what Sam needed.
Go ahead.
And he doesn't have a play.
Nope, he drew another land.
And his hand is all lands. Well, Seth Manfield knows what to do here. He leads things off with Long Tusk Cub. And if this isn't... Okay, that was a Heart of Kieran. Is it too late?
It's probably too late, yeah.
Okay.
It's close. Heart of Kieran still lets the Toolcraft attack this turn for a significant amount of damage and threatens to fly over in the air. But Seth has Appetite for the Unnatural. Seth has Winding Constrictor. Seth really has all the tools he needs to win this game.
There's a Heart of Kieran from Sam.
Combat.
Pretty interesting.
Yep.
Apparently Seth and Brad, actually, it wasn't just that Seth was skeptical. They disagreed about it strongly leading into the match, but he's decided to have faith in master deck tuner Brad Nelson. And here we go. Whining Constrictor. Does he have Blossoming Defense, too, to protect
yes.
this whole thing? Oh, my goodness.
Seth does actually have it all.
Seth has a clean attack here, right?
Yeah, Sam can't
No way
even
to crew.
crew the Heart of
Yeah.
Kieran.
So an easy attack here. He's just going to take the 2 energy, turn it into 2 counters, get 2 energy from the Cub, get a bonus energy from the Whining Constrictor, and he's sitting there at 3 energy with 2 potentially huge monsters ready to seal the deal. Seth Manfield firmly in the driver's seat against Sam Ihlenfeldt, looking to end Sam's awesome run here at Pro Tour Ixalan. Sam, off the top of his library,
Combat.
Yeah.
Ethersphere Harvester.
Yeah, that is not quite going to do it either.
Accrue.
Yeah.
Swing.
Well, he's going to go out swinging, crew up
15.
Yeah.
his Heart of Kieran, attack for 4. This is going to leave him defenseless, though, as Ethersphere Harvester is going to have him
His
tapped out,
Harvester,
and he is
trigger,
going to take
2
a
energy.
huge amount of damage
Go
here.
Looks like you're in a pretty good spot this one.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're doing here. We can just get Sam to do it.
I'm into that.
It should be at.
6. It's 6. If it's the wrong way, it's fine.
I got it.
Sorry.
They called my opponent on it last round. I just didn't want you to get.
We just have to make sure
So
that
you're
it's
at
not the
16,
6,
right?
Yeah.
that it's the 6 and not an upside down 9, because then things can get confusing later on. But we are seeing the final turns of our semifinals here. This is going to be a 3-0 victory for Seth Manfield unless Sam comes up with a miracle. The draw has just not cooperated with him. He had to mulligan twice.
Times, so
And look at this.
another
Full
6.
aggression here from Seth Manfield.
So this is 10.
Is that
Actually,
12?
it's actually lethal if he goes Blossom Defense, Walking Ballista. He actually just has the clean.
He actually
the
just
turn
kills
forward.
him right here.
Yeah, you got it.
Look at this. He says, hold on a second. I'm going to cast Blossoming Defense right now. Put you to 2. He's running the numbers 3 times to make sure that this is correct, but it is. And there's Ballista, shoot you for 2.
way to go, man.
Seth Manfield is into the finals.
Your deck's sweet.
Sam Ihlenfeldt congratulating Seth and even throwing in a comment about how much he likes his deck. What a nice guy, and a high five from both of them. You can see a big sigh of relief, though, on the side of Seth Manfield, because he got by the Mardu Vehicles player here, Sam Ihlenfeldt, who ends a historic run for him as it was his first Pro Tour, and he now has ended it in the semifinals. But that, of course, means that we have 2 very good players to face off here in the finals in the form of Seth Manfield and Pascal Maynard, with a pretty cool matchup as well. Blue-White Godpharaoh's Gift and Sultai Energy.
Yep.
So 2 decks and 2 players. There will only be 1 champion, of course, and we're going to find out who it is in just a little bit. We'll be back after these messages.
And so, there were only 2 players left at Pro Tour Ixalan. Seth Manfield and Pascal Maynard. Rich Hagan and Simon Gertzen here with you to preview the final in just a little bit. But Simon, we've had plenty of great action through the day so far. Why don't we take a look at our bracket for you and give you a sense of what you've missed, because you were doing other things, you silly people. So let's talk the quarterfinals first of all. We had 4 Americans coming in, then we had Guillaume Matignon of France, Pascal Maynard from Canada, the Pole, Piotr Glogowski, and Christian Hauck of Germany from your homeland. Which of the quarterfinals stood out to you and why?
For me, absolutely the match between Mike Sigrist and Samuel Ihlenfeldt. There was just so many close games, always basically on a razor's edge. It could go either way. A lot of really, really tiny decisions. We had basically decision trees which went from Ether Hub requiring mana from Ether Sphere energy to make colored mana, to activate Scrap Heap Scrounger, which was able to remove a creature from a graveyard, which was relevant because there was a Scarab God on the battlefield. This is the level of complexity that we are seeing in this standard format.
So really a sort of, for the purist, if you like, which is, which I regard you as, because I know that you love being put to the test with that highest level of decision making.
And this was a test for both players, for us as commentators, for viewers, I believe. It was just complex magic, but enjoyable complex magic.
Yeah, I want to take a beat also to thank Mike Sigrist, because it's easy to win with dignity, harder to lose with dignity, and he was straight onto social media, first of all with the thoroughly understandable human reaction of vomit, swiftly followed by, yep, I messed up, but guess what? My opponent was really great. Best of luck in the top 4, Samuel Ihlenfeldt. So great stuff. Mike Sigrist, one of the real good guys of the game, and a tremendous player on Team Channel Fireball, of course. So that brought Ihlenfeldt into the semi-finals, where he would face Seth Manfield, who pretty handily dealt with Guillaume Matignon, kind of as Matignon expected. Bottom half of the bracket saw both energy decks exit, leaving us Ramanat Bread against the White Blue Godfarer's Gift of Pascal Maynard. We've just watched the semi-finals. How about those?
I wasn't really surprised that Seth Manfield was able to take the win against Mardu Vehicles. Samuel has had a great run at his first Pro Tour, but I think Sultai Energy is the better deck. Seth Manfield is the more experienced player. He was on the play. There were just a lot of factors.
All good little reasons.
Exactly.
Okay.
A lot of little reasons.
And so we have a final of Seth Manfield against Pascal Maynard. But they represent Team Mastrop West and Team Genesis. And the lead in the team series is actually dependent on the outcome of this match. The man who knows all about the team series is over with Maria at the video wall.
Thanks so much, Rich. Well, BDM, let's take a look at these team standings. Break it down for us. Where are we sitting after the first couple of days at the Pro Tour?
Well, first of all, you're going to see these 2 teams here both have the sort of orange, or is it salmon? What call it?
Salmon for sure.
Salmon for sure. Okay, well, that means these guys are still our 2 players remaining in the tournament. And what this really means here is that Seth Manfield can jump his team up 2 spots ahead of Team Channel Fireball.
Wow.
But right now, Team Channel Fireball is the top team, with 1 match of Magic left to play in the tournament. And even with 1 match left, the team standings are still pretty tumultuous. So let's take a look at Team Channel Fireball and talk about that team.
Yeah, they had an amazing first day here
Absolutely.
at the Pro Tour.
They went 16-2. Through the first 3 rounds of the tournament in limited, posted great results throughout. A little bit of a tail off on day 2, but Mike Sigrist paced the field and obviously got through to the top 8. And he's why they're the top team. And then we can take a look at Team Ultra Pro next. Let's go past Team Channel Fireball. Let's take a look at Team Ultra Pro. And this is a team that tested with Team Channel Fireball.
That's right. And look at these records. Pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt Nass and Alexander Hain very quietly had fallen sort of below what we consider, the 3 losses is where we start to, stop paying attention to you a little bit. Once you get past 3 losses, we stop paying attention to you in the tournament. But these 2 guys just kept steadily creeping along. And this is 2 virtual top 8 finishes. 4 losses was good enough to make the top 8 at this tournament.
Sam Ihlenfeldt.
As well, you well know.
Yes, I do. Got in by the skin of his teeth on tiebreakers.
Moving on now, we see
Genesis, here we go. So this is one of the finalists in the team series last year, getting up there, lost to Musashi and then, but doing a really solid job at this tournament as well.
And they could be the #1 team if Seth Manfield wins this next match. Let's keep moving on here. And Ultimate Guard Pro, this is huge. William Jensen, 11-5. He was 1-4. You know what? Peach Guard and Oath, they get to play in that Team Pro Tour at the end of the year. These extra points from William Jensen gutting it out from 1-4 could be huge when we determine the finals of the Pro Tour Team Series.
I really like this too. The Peach Guard and Oath kind of baked into here, Team Ultimate Guard, so it's a team within a team. It's like a turkey.
Within a team, yeah. Let's look again at the next team, Mastrop West, Pascal Maynard. But person I want to just talk about really quickly, Sean McLaren, and also Jacob Wilson on Metagame Gurus. Those guys are both modern masters, and we have a modern Pro Tour coming up next, and those guys are going to be very valuable to their teams.
So a question some of you might have out there is, where is Team MTG Mint Card? They made a pretty deep run at the team series last time around. The answer is that they're currently 13th overall, and one of their key players, Yam Wing Chung. And you actually sat down and talked to Yam. He was in the top 4 of the last Pro Tour, had a pretty heartbreaking loss.
Yeah, absolutely. We all watched him get overexcited maybe when he drew his card. Made a huge mistake that, ultimately cost him the match. Came back here, went 8-0 on day 1, and his record carried the team to a very strong finish here at the first leg of the Team Pro Tour Team Series. And his team was super supportive of him, and I got a chance to talk to not just him, but his whole team about his experience at the last Pro Tour.
All right, let's check it out.
When you watch, remember that these are people who play not just for their own love of the game, but for yours and my love of the game too. We've just witnessed something pretty extraordinary, pretty exceptional, pretty heartbreaking. And that's why, amongst many other reasons, Magic is the best game in the world.
That's probably the biggest mistake I can make. That was the biggest mistake I made, and probably the biggest mistake I can make, even in the future.
And as soon as he drew it, I was so happy. And then about 5 seconds later, I threw my phone onto the bed because I was just like, how did this happen?
I'm playing my semifinals, and it's against PV, one of the best players in the world. If I draw incendiary flow, I can win the game right away.
Is it a flow?
See what he's got.
It's a flow!
It is an incendiary flow!
Oh my god!
Yam Wing Chung just
It's an incendiary flow off the top!
Here, and look at
I
this.
heard everything. Well, not everything, but I heard loud cheering when he drew a card. And I knew that couldn't be for me. Because, he was doing the just drew a card, even if he drew a land, the game's not over yet. So at the point that I heard the cheering, I thought this game is over.
Basically, I draw the exact card that would win me the game.
And look at this.
No, you can't attack. You can't attack. He has only 2 cards in hand.
He can't
Is he in his combat step? What's going on? He can't attack. Is it? That cost him the game. That cost him the game.
That could cost Yam Wing Chun the game.
But then I attack Hazard with 2 cards in hand, which is against the rules. So they have to go back, and I couldn't make the attack.
Well, firstly, I thought it was actually pretty cute when he took off the headset, was in frustration, and then he stopped and realized, oh wait, I can still win this. All right, what should I do? Put back the headset on, and then figure it out. And a lot of players would have just broken down completely then.
Then my opponent, he tried to attack with Hazard. I said, you can't do that. And then he was very distraught, which confirmed the fact that he actually was going to kill me if he could have done things in a different order.
And while I couldn't make the winning attack with everything I need to win in my hand.
Yeah, it was like a rush of emotions, and then I ran to the tournament site. I guess I just wanted to go and give him a big hug. I had to wait in line. Everyone was getting in line and give him a big hug.
Yam, he pulled himself up very well after he realized he made that bad play.
Yam Wing Chun, Paulo Vitor, Dominic wins the match 3-2 in a match that will certainly go down as one of the most dramatic finishes we've had in the semifinals.
I think he's just showing everyone that he has the ability to to come back from a mistake.
Yeah, Magic is really hard. No one's going to play perfectly, so you're trying to minimize the number of mistakes that you make. And sometimes we're very lucky that the mistakes we make don't count. Sometimes, like it was for Jan, it was the difference between him advancing and not. He changed everything, so it was a huge mistake in the consequences of that. But for example, in the finals against some party, I had a game in which I had a Chandra, a Torch of Defiance, and I had a 5th land in my hand, and I used the plus ability on Chandra before I played the land. So had I hit Glory Bringer, I wouldn't have been able to cast it, because you have to cast a card immediately. There's no window for you to play a land. So it was just an incredibly big mistake. Magic is really hard. You're always going to make mistakes. And sometimes they'll punish you a lot, and sometimes they won't punish you at all. And you kind of have to be able to cope with them when they do.
Thanks so much, BDM. That was a great video and great insight into the last Pro Tour. Well, as we make our way towards the finals, let's take a closer look at our players. Pascal Maynard is our first player. He is a Gold Pro, lifetime Pro points, 211, lifetime prize winnings, almost $70,000. This, of course, his second Pro Tour top 8, 24 years old, from Canada, Team Mass Drop West, 13 GP top 8s and 2 titles to Pascal's name. Let's take a look at his deck list. White, blue, God Pharaoh's Gift, and you know what, Simon, if you told me this deck would be playing in the final of this tournament, I wouldn't have believed you.
No, we didn't expect that at all. We knew there were some fringe decks coming to the surface at this event, but we were always wondering, do they really have what it takes to beat Energy and then all the other decks in the metagame?
So, Simon, there are, I'm reliably informed, 7 people who have just joined the stream and have seen none of this deck in action. So for those 7, plus me, walk us through, the 8 of us, how this deck is going to win, if it's going to win.
Yes. If this deck wins, it does so relatively uninteractively. It wants to draw out the game with chump blockers, and then it uses one of the ways to get cards in the graveyard to find God Pharaoh's Gift. So what happens, what you will see is, for example, a turn 2 Charter Course or Search for Ascanta, or a turn 3 Champion of Wits, and all of these are in the deck to find and put God Pharaoh's Gift into the graveyard.
Right, so God Pharaoh's Gift is not meant to be a fair card because the 7 in the top right-hand corner is the fair price for a God Pharaoh's Gift.
And there is a plan B to this deck, which is hard casting Angel of Invention at 5 and hard casting God Pharaoh's Gift on 7.
Hard mode.
Yes, but that's definitely a plan B, maybe plan C. It's not what you want to be doing.
So Pascal Maynard said earlier that he would rather play against Sultai in the finals. He wouldn't rather play against Seth, but he'd rather play against Sultai. Why do you think that is?
It is, I think, a mid-range deck that has some aggressive draws. Mardu Vehicles is an aggro deck that has almost only aggressive draws. And that is a big difference. I also think that the Mardu colors have a bit of an easier time dealing with a God Pharaoh's Gift once it's on the battlefield. I'm thinking primarily of the card Abrade, which I've been talking about all day. Sultai, not so much permission, not so many ways to deal with the 7 casting cost artifact.
One of the great truisms of Magic is that at any given time, somebody's trying to win, or should be, and somebody's trying not to lose, or should be. In Pascal's seat, in this final that's coming up, is he meant to be trying to win from the start, or is he meant to be trying to not lose at the start?
He's trying not to lose. And that is something which generally is not regarded a very good strategy, but you can think of his deck as almost like a control deck in this matchup that knows it has the power and the staying power to come back from board positions that look really dire. We have seen this deck basically go down to 1 life, then reanimate an Angel of Invention with God Pharaoh's Gift, immediately gain the life gain and have an untapped, thanks to Vigilance, have an untapped lifelinker on defense. And that was enough to turn games around from basically a horrendous position with zero non-land permanents.
I want to know how well you think that he read the metagame overall for this weekend. We talked about the fact that people are playing less Abrades. Do you think he made just kind of a sort of outside genius call on bringing this deck?
Yes and no. I think what he did absolutely right was he picked a deck that fit his style. Pascal Maynard is almost synonymous with decks that are a little bit on the fringy side. He's not really the tier 1, I'm going to be Teamer Energy, I'm Brett Nelson, I'm going to crush all the mirrors kind of guy. He knows he has to find his edges somewhere, and that's how you end up playing decks with 4-minute Store of Inquiries.
You see, I love what you say there, Simon, because to me, as someone who will never be one of the best players in a room, certainly at this level, be hard-pressed to be at the best level at most rooms, to be fair, but the goal is not to be the best player of the best deck. The goal is to win. And Pascal said it explicitly today. I can't even remember whether it was on air or off, but he said, I'm not going to be playing Teamer Energy because I don't want to play Teamer Energy mirrors against William Jensen or Owen Turtenwald or the best players in the world with those mid-range decks. So if he's not going to win with that, there's no point in looking at Teamer Energy. He has to go on the fringe, and that's where his edges lie.
Guillaume Matignon did exactly the same thing. Right. He played Game 1, he played an approach of the second Sun deck because he knew that would give him the edge against Teamer Energy. He often sideboarded it out because he had a different strategy in sideboarded games. That just shows you that you don't... well, there's one player in the room at any given Pro Tour who is, in theory, the best player in the room. But anybody who is not Paulo Vitor da Amorosa, just to put a name out there,
sure,
has to accept that they will need some element of luck, some element of things going right for them to win this Pro Tour.
Well, I'll tell you
I did the same thing. I was not the best player in that room by a large margin, but I gave myself the best chance to actually get that trophy.
Well, one of the best players in the room is unquestionably Seth Manfield, and he is going to be in the final in just a minute. Why don't we take a look, Maria, at Seth?
Well, there you go. Seth Manfield, currently ranked 11 in the World Platinum Pro, a member of Team Genesis who have put up astounding results here this weekend. 354 lifetime pro points, $233,000 in prize winnings. He has 4 Pro Tour top 8s under his belt, 11 Grand Prix top 8s, and of course your World Championship champion in 2015. Let's take a look at his deck, Sultai Energy. All right, Simon, break this deck down for us.
Yes, no problem, Maria. We do have Winding Constrictor as the key element of Sultai Energy. This card works with +1/+1 counters. Most people are familiar with that because this has been a deck in the past, Black-Green Constrictor. But it also works with energy counters that are given to players by cards like Long Tusk Cub or Attune with Ether. So what this deck does is it basically plays very similar to Teamer Energy. However, you don't have access to Harness Lightning. Instead, you can play Fatal Push. That's actually not a big difference if we're being honest. However, you are playing a bit more of an aggressive game. When you have those Winding Constrictor games, draws, you are really going off.
Earlier in the day, I asked Luis Scott Vargas, sitting in your seat, I said, those hostage takers, they're out of Ixalan, they're a really good card. What's he going to do with those? And he said, sideboard them out about 3 seconds after game 2. So, same question, hostage taker. That's a good card from Ixalan. What's that doing in the final?
Yes, so when you asked Luis, he was playing against Approach of the Second Sun with virtually 0 targets. Now, there are targets in Pascal's deck for hostage taker. However, it's not your goal to take control of a Sacred Cat. That will not...
Has anyone had the goal of taking control of a Sacred Cat?
I have, but, you know, in real life.
Yeah.
Let's wait until we see if Sacred Cat wins the Pro Tour before we make any more jokes here.
Okay.
All right.
No, Hostage Taker is not in the deck for this matchup. It can be nice to take over, for example, an Angel of Invention. That's certainly a powerful interaction. But you are really playing that card to deal with the Scarab God, with Glory Bringers, with Long Tusk Cubs that are threatening to grow out of control. And in that regard, Pascal's deck is just not a creature deck, even though he wins with creatures at some point during the game.
So cards like Vraska's Contempt, which we have in here, which we haven't actually seen a lot of, how well do they match up against something that Pascal's trying to do?
The thing is, if Pascal gets his wish and Godfarer's Gift starts eternalizing creatures from the graveyard, it's not strictly speaking eternalizing, but effectively that's what it does, you can't really be optimistic that you will win the game by dealing with these 4/4s.
Seth Manfield is not someone who is an anxious player. He's very patient. That's one of the things that's great about him. But we've already established that Pascal, we think the correct assignment of roles is try not to lose early. By definition, that puts Seth in the try to win in the front part of the game. How aggressive is he going to have to be in looking at his opening hands and going, I need my long tusk cub to be there on turn 2. I need to start doing winding constrictor on 3. We're going to see lots of mulligans from Seth?
Well, I don't hope so, but I think that strategic mulligans will play a huge role. I definitely want to see a 2-drop, Long Tusk Cub or Winding Constrictor, maybe even both. And also the amount of dead cards in the pre-sideboarded games do make it somewhat easier to mulligan. If I see a hand with 2 fatal pushes, I'm just not interested.
All right, well, we are interested in the outcome of this first Pro Tour of the 2017-18 season. We've had a great day, and here's the final of Pro Tour Ixalan.